And welcome, Hoosier fans, to this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio, where each week we discuss the most urgent topics in the never-dull world of Indiana basketball. This is our 112th edition of Assembly Call Radio, and it is our 488th episode overall of the Assembly Call, recorded on the evening of Thursday, February 21st, 2019. I am your host, Jerod Morris. And let's begin this edition of the Assembly Call how we begin every edition of the Assembly Call, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment.
And Indiana is the national champion.
When it comes down, Indiana will be champion.
Smart takes the shot.
The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
Better times. This week's banner moment occurred at the 2:45 mark of Tuesday night's loss to Purdue. Carson Edwards missed a three-pointer, his 10th miss from long range on the night, without making a single one. And Edwards didn't just miss it. Indiana's defense, as it did all night long, forced the miss, led by an uber-intense and focused Al Durham and some timely hedging by Juwan Morgan. That play, that thud of a miss, was indicative of the kind of alert, connected team defense that Indiana played all night on Purdue's best player. Tuesday night marked the first time all season that Edwards was held without a three-pointer. In fact, you have to go all the way back to February 3rd of last season to a game at Rutgers to find the last time Edwards didn't make at least one three-pointer in a game. And while he did make a huge driving bucket late to give Purdue a 46-45 lead, credit where due, Edwards struggled from inside the arc all night, going just 4 for 14. In all, Edwards scored just 9 points on 4 of 24 shooting, good for an offensive rating of 52 for the game, the lowest rating he's posted since his freshman season. It led to Purdue scoring just .76 points per possession, one of the lowest totals they've posted in years. Sometimes good shooters and good offenses just have bad nights, independent of the defense. And sometimes the individual and team defense is so good, it can bottle up even the best scores and schemes. On Tuesday night, it was the latter. Indiana's defense was outstanding, a welcome turnaround from the defense we saw Saturday at Minnesota, which had been flat terrible. Archie Miller wants his Indiana program to be one that is built on consistent defense played with toughness and togetherness. His Hoosiers delivered that on Tuesday night. It was a defensive performance to build on moving forward, and one that will lead to victory on most nights. Just, unfortunately, not that night. All right, now let me introduce my esteemed co-host for this week's show. To my left, he is the Fran McCaffrey of Girls U Sports Coaching in Cincinnati, the president emeritus of the Robert Johnson Fan Club, and a world-renowned bracketologist. And he has just one very small request as a fan of Indiana basketball.
I just want one guy who, when he takes a three-pointer, I actually believe it's going to go in.
Andy, what is your bottoms line from the last week in Indiana basketball?
Yeah, I might just stick with that little sound drop there and go with that as my no. But as you watch these games, I think we get on here and it seems like each loss has taken on a life of its own for a different reason, and you kind of work your way through the emotions of, hey, I was really glad they played better, to why did it take so long for this to come around, and to see that kind of effort. And then you go back and you sit and you watch the press conference and you see a guy like Juwan Morgan sitting there choking back tears in a game that really meant a lot to him. And it puts a number of things in perspective, not the least of which is we don't have a whole lot more games to watch of him, no matter how this season really goes, no matter what, even if some kind of miraculous run would happen, it's still not that much longer. And I guess as you kind of look for different things to focus on, a lot of the what do we look for from here in the remaining games of the season, so much of that focuses itself on things that we might see that are, seeds to plant for next year and different things like that. Even I wrote something like that to you guys as we were trying to talk about it. But I then kind of take a step back and say, I just want to enjoy the last handful of games that I'm going to get to see him play, because while his leadership style may not have been what this team needed, you certainly can't say that he didn't lead. He's an undersized center going out there playing 35, 38 minutes a game, banging with these guys and really just trying to lead by example. And I think, his contributions and all the things that he's really brought to the program are things that will be missed, even though it's easy to say, let's turn the page on this season. So I guess my thoughts would be, if I could talk to the players, it would be, make these last handful of games good for him, because he deserves it. And talking to fans, pull hard for that guy. Even if you're pissed about how the season has gone, which I think everybody is to varying degrees, pull hard for that guy to have some success and to have some great moments that he'll be able to remember in thanks for what he's given to IU and what he's done. So that's kind of the lens that I'm going to choose to watch these last handful of games, and maybe they take on even bigger meaning than that. But I will certainly miss watching him play. He's been a great representative of the program. says the right things, does the right things, and it clearly a guy who, while there's guys that get pointed to about, does this guy care? Where's this effort? Where's that? You didn't have to watch too much of that press conference the other night to really see that guy gets it, that guy cares. And hopefully these last few weeks will bring some better things for him, give him a reason to crack a smile in the postgame instead of looking like he did the other night.
And to my right, he's a columnist for The Big Lead and a co-host of The Hangover, and also...
I was the Indiana Daily Student's basketball columnist. I have plenty of problems with Steve Alford. I've never changed a diaper in my life. If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. You can be wrong. That's fine.
Ryan, what is your opening rant this week?
Stand by all of that to this day. All I've got really for this week, obviously it stinks to lose to Purdue. We're all upset about it. But if you look at this next stretch for Indiana, this is going to make or break the season. And we've said that a couple times this year, but this is, at this point where we are, this is for sure 100% going to make or break the season. At Iowa tomorrow night, Friday night, you've got Tuesday at home against Wisconsin, and then we're going to be there Saturday, March 2nd against Michigan State. Those 3 games against top 25 teams, that's your season right there. Then you finish at Illinois and at home against Rutgers. You definitely have to win those 2. And we're not even talking about NCAA tournament. We're just talking to make this season anything, at all. You finish above 500, you've got to feel like you're going to the NIT because of your wins and because of the fact that Indiana is Indiana, and the NIT would love to have Indiana. So, if you're talking about it from that perspective, Indiana's got some quality wins and will probably be in there. But if you want to make the NCAA tournament, you have to win the next. Hey, we've heard, you've got to win this game, got to win this game, got to win this game. No, those next 3 games are the ones you got to win. And then you get to the Big Ten tournament. Of course, if you don't win all 5 of these remaining games, you get to the Big Ten tournament. Of course, it's a roll of the dice. You never know. But this team has to come together. And we saw the effort against Purdue defensively, and we saw the effort offensively, but we just didn't see the continuity and execution offensively. And that has to show up. And you know what also has to show up? Somebody has to step up confidently and make some shots. And they had plenty of open looks against Purdue from 3 that just did not go down. I rewatched that game. It's stark how open some of those shots were that just didn't go down and were nowhere close. And we know this team is not a good 3-point shooting team. We're going to talk about that tonight. But at some point, somebody has to step up and make some shots on this team. These guys have played basketball before. They're not 28% 3-point shooters. They're better than that. But the confidence is gone. And team-wide, the confidence is gone, except for maybe Devontae Green. He's always confident in himself. But other than that, the confidence is completely out the window. These guys have to start making some shots and shooting with regularity. We saw one go down for Rob Finney the other night. That's a great sign because his shot had been way off since he came back from his injury. That's good moving forward. But other guys have to make shots too. I mean, a guy like Demezy Anderson, he's not playing much, but when he's in there, his whole thing is supposed to be shooting. And he's been awful from 3 this year. It just has not had any confidence whatsoever. And his shot has not even been close. It's not like some of these are rimming in and out. They're nowhere close. And so somebody on this team over their last remaining weeks of the season has to step up and start consistently making shots. And that's the only way this season is going to get turned around. The effort and execution. I mean, the effort has to be there. The execution, I don't expect to get worlds better, but I expect to be better. But then somebody, if you're executing properly, someone has to be able to knock down a shot from the outside, or the opposing team is just going to limit you to what you can do offensively.
All right, here's what we're going to talk about this week. Keys to victory against Iowa, as Ryan mentioned. Why can't we shoot? We'll give you 7 reasons, in fact, why IU has had 2 straight bad shooting seasons. And then how does Indiana's talent actually stack up with the rest of the conference? We investigate, and then we answer your questions. All of that coming this week on Assembly Call Radio. Now, before we get to all of that, let's talk, as we do in this spot usually, about sleep. And if you stuck around for AC After Dark last week, then you heard our expansive conversation with Megan Mahaffey.
Hi.
She is our longtime Assembly Call listener and an original chat mobber. Well, Megan was recently in the market for a new mattress, and she and her husband decided to give Comfort Option a try and she was nice enough to join us last week to share her experience, and naturally, I chopped up the audio to use in fun, out-of-context ways.
I just sneezed, and it's the worst thing that has ever happened to me.
But also in useful ways, like sharing why you should give Comfort Option a try. For example, if you live in Indy or Bloomington, you can schedule Comfort Option's revolutionary in-home mattress service. Why is that cool?
There's a van with a bed in it, and they just put the mattress together right there, and you lay on it, and you decide if you like it or not.
Plus,
they don't charge you extra to come build the mattress at your house.
Seriously, they don't. And if you don't live in Indy or Bloomington, you can still order one of their Alpha mattresses online, and they'll deliver it anywhere in the U.S. Megan and her husband actually went with the Alpha Medium.
We've been really, really pleased with how the Alpha Medium has felt. I am physically sleeping better.
And to top it all off, Comfort Option offers a 30-90 satisfaction guarantee to make sure that you love your mattress.
I actually got an email this morning from Comfort Option just checking in. How's everything going? Do we need to make any adjustments? Because they will do that with the Alpha mattress too, folks. They will let you sleep on it for 30 days, and then they'll work with you to kind of swap things out and make it more appropriate for what you need if you find it's not working for you, which is awesome.
Bottom line, they want the mattress buying experience to be more pleasant than it's ever been.
The whole thing, start to finish, went incredibly smoothly.
Mission accomplished. So go to comfortoption.com right now and either order your Alpha mattress or schedule your in-home mattress store service today. And when you do it, use the promo code ASSEMBLY to get $50 off your purchase. Again, comfortoption.com, promo code ASSEMBLY for $50 off. Get the mattress that's right for you. Don't leave your sleep to chance. It's too important.
We want you to live.
Yes, we do.
Can we get some basketball, please?
Yes. Okay. Back to talking basketball. Gentlemen, Indiana will have an opportunity to rebound from the Purdue loss and the current 4-game losing streak tomorrow night, Friday night. It's a late tip against Iowa. Andy, as you look at this game, and obviously Indiana's already played Iowa once, lost by 5 at home, what are the keys to Indiana being able to go on the road to Iowa City and pull out a victory?
Well, on the one hand, I certainly hope that it felt like for a few games there, Iowa used up any residual luck that they had going for them between some of the shots that Bohannon hit against IU. He hit a buzzer beater against Northwestern, and then the crazy Joe Wieskamp throw the ball length of the floor winds up in his hands, and he banks one in from the corner. So it feels like, in this season, perhaps it should never feel like an opponent has used up all of their good luck, but on some level, it does feel like maybe things get back to a reasonable level with Iowa, but they lost on a buzzer beater tip in. I guess not a buzzer beater, but a tip in the final 10 seconds the other night. So I think as you look over it, they really burned IU 3-point shooting in the first game. I think that becomes really important for a team that's really good offensively to begin with. And IU allowed them to shoot 40% from 3-point range in the first game, and the other guy who really burned him was Tyler Cook. That there were didn't really have great answers for him on the inside, and Luka Garza was a guy that got talked about coming into that game, but he ended up being in foul trouble for the majority of the game, and it was really Cook who gave IU trouble. And so you've really got to get off to a good start, not let the crowd get in the game too much, and play the kind of defense they played the other night and really make things tough for Iowa on that end of the floor, because that's really where, for a team like that, they can really get going downhill offensively. They run off a good series of points, crowd gets in the game, and based on what we've seen from IU this year, it's not an optimal situation for them to end up in. And so I think, really defense is going to have to be it. You'd like to think that IU is going to be able to score enough against Iowa, whose defense hasn't been that great in Big Ten play. Again, maybe that's wishful thinking given what we've seen out of IU's offense, but it all has to start on the defensive end, because that's what's going to keep the crowd out of it and give IU a chance to hang around long enough to win the game, and maybe get Robert Johnson to come back and hit 7 threes against them again.
Hey, yeah, what did he hit, 9? I think that game.
Was it 7 or 9?
Yeah, it was even more than that.
I would take 7, even if it was 9. 7 would be fine.
I'd take 3 at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody who can make 3 in a game,
everybody would just pass out and then miss the rest of the game anyway.
Yeah, I would also say, Juwan's got to play more than 22 minutes. I agree, Andy. You've got to make threes to beat Iowa. And the other thing is you got to defend the 3-point line. In Iowa's losses this year, they're shooting 31.3% from downtown. Their season average is 38.1% in conference play. So it is a stark difference, and a big key to watch, and it was a big key in game 1, is Joe Wieskamp. He is 5 for 20 in their losses, but he's shooting 42.6% overall, and he has scored in double digits, or he scored in single digits in all 6 of their losses. He had 2 in the Maryland game. And this is the guy that Indiana was just leaving and allowed to get basically 3 wide open threes early in the first half, and it killed him. So they've got to understand the scouting report and get out on him and not let him have open threes. Ryan, last word on the Iowa game.
Yeah, here's my key to the Iowa game. Bohannon of Wieskamp cannot combine for 9 threes. I mean, that's just, you can't let him do it. Romeo Langford did not guard Wieskamp well last time. Justin Smith made some mistakes on him.
He did in the second half. He just didn't early.
You're right, but Wieskamp hit 3 in a row in the first half, basically. I mean, they were in quick succession, not in a row. But
one of those was Justin Smith with one of the worst approaches I've ever seen.
And quite frankly, you can't have those guys hit 9 threes on you. The reason why is because Indiana doesn't have anybody who can hit 9 combined to hit 9 threes to answer it. You look at some of the games this year for Indiana, and the difference in the game is at the 3-point line. And I know that's easy to say, and we keep harping on it about the shooting, but when it's such a weapon in the game these days, you cannot get outscored by 20 points at the 3-point line or whatever it is. And we've seen Indiana consistently get outscored by 15, by 18 at the 3-point line. You cannot do that in the modern basketball game and expect to win games just by pounding it in the paint. There was a while, even during the losing streak, where Indiana was still over 50% from the field on the season and losing games. And the reason why is because you were getting 2s instead of 3s consistently. So in the first game, Indiana hit 7 threes. Well, Iowa hit 10 and won by 5 points. And that's 9 points that they got you at on the 3-point line. So yeah, they shoot more threes. They're more consistent, so they're going to win at the 3-point line. You can expect that, but Indiana cannot make it easy on them. And Wieskamp and Bohannon, they made it easy. Bohannon, of course, hit the ridiculous one at the end that we all know about, and there's nothing you can do to defend that. Sometimes those just go in, but he also hit some pretty open threes that that the team gave him, and you can't let those happen.
Yep. All right, coming up on the Assembly Call, let's talk more about shooting. How is it possible that a program like Indiana from a state like Indiana can produce 2 straight seasons of such putrid shooting? Where have all the Jimmy Chitwoods gone? We're going to discuss it and give you the exact reasons why. Stick with us on the Assembly Call. All right. And hello there to everybody watching live. Incredible to see so many of you still here in the middle of such an awful losing skid, still choosing to hang out with us on Thursday nights, talking about this team.
Perhaps speaks to the quality of Thursday night television. Who's to say?
There's no Thursday night football anymore.
Yeah, a lot
there were still people with us, even when. By the way, so I don't know if you noticed the new music, the new ad read music, the new outro music there. Big hat tip to Bob Thompson, our listener, who reached out to us about a month ago and just wanted to give us some music. He's a musician and wanted to submit some music to us, and so I still haven't chopped up all the different files that he sent. But one of the things that I love about Bob and what he did is the names of the files that he sent over. Like the outro song for the next segment is called Bear's Mouth .wave.
Nice. Nice.
The song for the ad read is called Can a Brother Get Some Coupons? And that song that you just heard is called Ricky Rowe. And there's another one called Feathery. So Bob is awesome. We greatly appreciate it.
Bob, suggestion, just since we're on the blue chips thing, how about fully loaded Lexus?
It was a nuclear surfboard, remember? Yeah.
That's funny. It was 9 threes from Robert Johnson. I did look it up.
I know, because you weren't on that show.
I
was at my niece's gymnastics meet trying not to scream things out loud. It was great. It also made
I was really surprised you didn't just have that stat ready for like every
I mean, 9 just seemed hard to believe based on what we've seen. So
you think that the matchups will get more Race Thompson?
Also hard to believe. I mean, if Juwan gets in foul trouble again, I would assume that it would.
I just think they have a lot of like tall guys who can move. He
might be able to play a little bit on Tyler Cook, try to steal some minutes, somebody else on him. Because in looking at how many threes Robert Johnson had, it also made me realize that Tyler Cook has 49 points in his last 2 games against IU. So I'll
give Tyler Cook his points. If he wants to score 22 points down low, fine. Just don't give up the threes. I mean, you can live with Tyler Cook getting his points.
This is
if
going to
we make threes and hold him down.
This is going to be a big game where it's going to be interesting to see how the game is called. I mean, that's every game in the Big Ten, but with De'Ron and Morgan against those guys, they got a lot of foul calls in the first game.
Yeah.
And the question is, will they get those same calls at Iowa? And I assume no. So they've got to both stay on the court.
Depends what group of bozos the Big Ten sends out to call the game.
Yes, it does. All right, let's get into this. By the way, Sally says that she thought the topic tonight was the meaning of life. I mean, we're talking about shooting in basketball, so it's kind of.
Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. Come on.
By the way, I'm hearing great things about the Colin Hartman interview on the Hoosier Hysterics podcast. Those guys really done a good job with some of their long-form interviews. And I guess one of the things he talks about is just how like ridiculous Crean was in terms of like, not having a time for practice to be scheduled and just texting the guys during the day. Some of the things that we've heard from Coach about how those things went. I'm glad some of those things are going to start getting out there.
Yeah, it's fine. I've listened to the first like 30, 35 minutes of it, so I have not it has not gotten to that point. But
I will say that we've definitely heard some things, but you hear things, and then
I'm ready for that stuff to get out there.
Yeah, there's
especially for all the people who are still like, I don't know, who look at a bad stretch and are like, we should still have Crean. No, everyone, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. Okay, fine man. I appreciate.
He's
everything
a good
that
man, and he did a lot for
he delivered. It was time to move on. In case anybody's having second thoughts, just trust us. Trust Colin.
Breaks.
Blackout tomorrow at Iowa. They're having a blackout, so get ready for that. Really exciting. I was looking at the game notes. I'd like that they feel the need to call it out. Fans are encouraged to wear black clothing to Friday's game for the annual, quote, blackout. I think
maybe it's because we're going to make 40% of our threes and people are going to black out for shot.
Shoot the lights out? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. The Hawkeyes will be wearing their black uniforms
for
Iowa Friday's
City,
blackout.
You're not blacked out on a nightly basis. Something is wrong with you.
Sorry to all of our Iowa City listeners.
Man.
So sorry. Okay, let's
If you guys have been to Iowa, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Let's do this. So the way that I'll do this first section. And again, I'm not going to run through everything that's here because I think people know a lot of that stuff. So we'll do the first section since it relates to the previous staff, stop and discuss that, and then we'll talk about some of the more current stuff. Hit some of that stuff. And, if I'm explaining any of this and ramble at all, feel free to jump in too. You don't need to wait for me to be done if you have something that you want to say.
Yeah, well, Ryan often needs the license to.
It's really. I mean, I'm letting Andy.
Yeah,
know.
That's what I was going to say. That seems unnecessary.
Yeah, we know you're the Devontae Green of the assembly call. You'll take your shot whenever you want to.
Oh boy,
that's offensive.
Shots fired.
Okay, I mean, I mean that in a good way. You're always confident. Okay, here we go.
Not even going to respond.
This season's going off the rails. Okay. It's off the rails. Here we go. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. You can find all of our content at our website, assemblycall.com. And if you ever want to participate in one of our unedited live broadcasts,
Chat mobbers,
or watch those replays, then check out our YouTube channel. As esteemed chat mobber Chad once put it,
hearing the stuff in between, you get to know you guys a lot better.
Like the time last week when Coach used a get well wish to a chat mobber as an opportunity to rip IU players for their lackadaisical pregame warm-ups against Ohio State.
And Mary, we hope you get better from the hip replacement, and I guarantee you that your pregame routine's probably more intense than some of the IU kids I saw on Sunday. So keep up the good work, Mary, and keep joining us in the chat room.
Join us live at youtube.com/assemblycall. Coach gets feisty on
Coach is an individual who we love very, very much.
There are times that those aren't as funny as the moment in which they occurred, but I laughed just as much hearing it again than I did the initial time.
I laughed so hard when I was going through and heard that because I had forgotten about it. Okay, I'm Jerod Morris here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips. So we got this question from Marty. He said, perhaps discuss how it is possible that a blue blood program has not one player who is a legit three-point shooting threat, especially in the state of Indiana where there is a basketball hoop in every driveway, Mind-boggling to me. Well, it's mind-boggling to us too. So let's talk, guys, about the many, many reasons why Indiana hasn't been able to shoot under Archie Miller, because there isn't just one reason, there's a lot of them. And I want to go through them all here, and maybe there's some that, I didn't add to this list, so you guys feel free to chime in. But let's start first with some things that happened before Archie Miller even got here, because last year Indiana wasn't a good shooting team. This year Indiana is not a good shooting team. But there were some things that happened before Archie even got here that set Indiana on this path. One, just it's worth pointing out, is early departures. Thomas Bryant and OG Anunoby were capable big men shooters who went to the NBA early, and James Blackman Jr. left early too. He would have been on last year's team, and Colin Hartman came back but wasn't really himself last year. So those are all players who projected, just at least based on a 4-year college career, to be on the program that would have helped the shooting. More egregious were some recruiting misses and decisions by the previous staff that set the stage for this. So obviously you have, not getting in-state guys, going back previously like a Zach Irvin, or to guys playing now like Kyle Guy. Not getting those types of players hurt the overall shooting. But, I went back and looked at some of the scouting reports of guys recruited by the previous staff that are currently here. Al Durham, Devontae Green, Justin Smith, Josh Newkirk, who was on the team last year, even Juwan Morgan. And, look at what they said about Al Durham. His shot is not consistent at this stage, but he shows offensive confidence to continue to shoot. Solid two-way player who is solid to sometimes sneaky athlete who needs to work on being a consistent shooter. All of these guys, it was known in high school that they were inconsistent shooters, and the two guys who were kind of known to be shooters, Curtis Jones, really showed no development, and Grant Galon could shoot but really couldn't do anything else. So it's important to remember before we get to, kind of the decisions that this staff has made and what's happened this year is, Ryan, the decisions that were made previously by a staff that clearly valued shooting did not recruit shooting. So it's not like guys have regressed. They were known to be inconsistent shooters when they got here, and even if they've improved, they aren't the kind of dead-eye, lights-out shooters that you need.
Well, and let's alter that and say it's not that they didn't recruit shooting. They didn't land shooting. Yeah, I mean, sure. Archie Miller has recruited guys who can shoot. Some of them just pick other schools for whatever reason. They pick other schools, and that happens in big-time college recruiting. You go after really good players, you're going to lose what, 2/3 of them. You're going to lose. I mean, unless you're Duke or Kentucky, you're going to lose 2/3 of the guys you go after. Obviously you make certain targets higher priorities. Romeo Langford was a higher priority than some other guys on that list, and they got him, and that's huge. But yeah, you can recruit all you want guys that can shoot. The problem is you have to land some, and I think the key to that is that under Tom Crean, when the team was shooting well from three, he was recruiting shooters across the board. And then when he would get 4 out of the 10 main guys he was recruiting, 3 of the 4 could shoot. And that's just the way it worked with him as a recruiter. Now, again, some of the guys who Archie Miller inherited were not shooters. And so they're consistent shooters, we'll say. Justin Smith, a lot of people thought would be a good shooter. He has not developed into a good shooter. So I think that it's really worth noting that he's had a tough time developing these guys into shooters. And also, you have to put some of this on Archie as well, not just the recruiting, but
we're getting to that.
Yeah. Okay. And I would say that we'll get there then, because I do have some stuff to say about that, but I think that, yeah, you're right. The guys he inherited aren't exactly knockdown shooters, and the recruiting class he inherited was Al Durham. It was Justin Smith, and it was Clifton Moore. None of those guys were known as shooters. Al Durham has become a better shooter since getting on campus. Justin Smith has not. He has not really developed a jump shot. And at times he's looked like he could be that guy, but in general, he has not looked like a great shooter. And then, Clifton Moore, we haven't seen enough to even know if he can ever shoot. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as their careers expand and whether these guys choose to continue to stay with Archie. Remember, he was put in a very tough spot because with so many guys signing early now, there was nobody really – there weren't a lot of great players still available for him to go after and create a quick relationship with and lock down once he got the job. That's a position a lot of coaches are in, and so they instead opt to, hey, let's keep this recruiting class together, the recruiting class that's there, and then move on and start recruiting the next year really hard, really fast. And that is what Archie and the staff decided to do, and they did really well in their first full cycle recruiting. But that first recruiting class that he got – that was, the leftovers from Crean's recruiting class, that decision is certainly questionable at this point, whether those were the guys to do it with. But their decision to then go after the next recruiting class really hard paid off. So again, it's sort of a juggling act. You have to decide, make a choice of what you're going to do. And they chose to recruit that first full class harder.
See, here's why I want to make this point, because we see in the chat, Mike says, stop blaming it on Crean. He always led the nation almost in 3-point shooting. What is with the last few teams? That's why we're bringing this up, because, again, for a coach who valued 3-point shooting so much, that's why it's odd that he was going to have rosters like this. He would not have magically made this a good 3-point shooting roster. That's why it's worth bringing up to set the stage. There's plenty to get to with what's happened with the current guys, but that's why we want to bring this up.
We're doing 7 here, and we're only through 2, so don't worry, we're getting there. But no, you're right. It is worth noting that there are players on this roster who were brought in by the previous staff who were not known as shooters. If you look at their scouting reports, none of them were known as shooters. Now, Crean and his staff were good at developing shooters. They were. I mean, that's just a fact. But these guys weren't inherently good shooters. So that is worth noting.
Yep. Andy, do you want to chime in on that before we move on?
Not really. I mean, other than to say, Robert Johnson, we talked about him before. He was another guy on the roster who had shown some ability to be a solid 3-point shooter, but was, in his sophomore season, but was very much a guy who was able to get those shots. He shot so well in an offense where so many other players were the focal point. And as he became more of the focal point, he struggled to be able to take some of the shots. I think the quality of the looks that he got during his one season with Archie wasn't what they were with Crean. And some of that is on the offensive system and some of that is on the personnel. But that would really be the only other one. I mean, really, when you look at this season, I think Al's shown some significant improvement. He's, I think his percentage has jumped by about 10% on like 20. I think he's, doubled his number of makes with about, 50% more attempts. So he's jumped quite a bit. Devontae's percentage looks probably a little bit better than it is. He's at 37.5% this year. But if you take out the Central Arkansas game when he was 6 for 10 from 3, he's only 33% on the season in those games. So, but I think that's kind of what, the scouting report that you had written down talked about him being streaky. That's 100% true. That's certainly, something that we've been able to see.
You're listening to The Assembly Call. Jerod Morris here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips. We're talking about why Indiana has struggled shooting the last 2 years. So I'm going to run through the next 3 here, and then I want to get your guys' reaction. So the first one is that we've experienced some freshman year struggles from Rob and Romeo. Romeo shooting 32.3% in Big Ten play, which is better than his season average. The trajectory is up. Kind of tough to expect more than that based on what he was as a recruit and the fact that freshmen often struggle. Yogi, James Blackman, Christian Watford, Jordan Hulls, Victor Oladipo all shot significantly worse as freshmen than they did as their career went along. It's just something that you often see as guys adjust to the speed and the size and the strength of the guys in the college game.
Bigger arenas is a big factor.
Yeah. And remember about Rob Finney, he is shooting 23.5% from 3 since his concussion. He was shooting 44.8% prior to it. Now, he might have fallen off anyway when he hit the freshman wall, but his numbers have dropped since that concussion. Okay, so part of it is, those 2 freshmen kind of experiencing some normal, freshman struggles. Rob, we project to be a better 3-point shooter. You also have some seemingly good recruiting decisions by the current staff that haven't worked out. Evan Fitzner, he's shooting 29.3% from 3. He was 40.1% for his career. Demezy Anderson was recruited for shooting. Ryan, as you said, he's not even close right now. Neither one of those guys has been able to provide the key skill that they were brought here to provide. Some of that's on them. Some of that's on the staff. Some of that is just on the confidence vortex that this team has fallen into. And the other one is, frankly, injuries to Jerome Hunter and Race Thompson. You look at their scouting reports from high school, talks about the shooting. Jerome Hunter. Hunter is most dangerous behind the arc and is especially dependable from a stationary position and a catch-and-shoot scenario. His future as a spot-up shooter is what excites college coaches.
Think
Race
we can
Thompson.
use that right now?
Yeah, I think so. Thompson often demonstrated that he can take the ball himself on the fast break and he can knock down 3-pointers. So I know it's easy to say, we haven't seen those guys play all year. Stop making the excuse that they didn't play. All we're saying is those are 2 of your better shooters that haven't been here. It's going to impact your ability to shoot.
Forget
and
that.
That's
They're
from
2 of the better recruits. Like,
I know.
To act
so
like
that
like
impacts it.
But to act like them missing time isn't a factor in all of this is insane. As guys have worn down and as their they've played a lot more minutes. That's when other guys step up on your roster. And, that point of the season is where other guys step up, fill in, and then they balance the minutes out a little bit. That has not happened for this Indiana team because there's been no minutes to balance out for other guys and no guys to step up. By this point in the season, I have completely healthy Jerome Hunter and Race Thompson will be pushing for starting spots, in my opinion. That's how good they were as recruits. They were the second and third ranked recruits in this class. So to act like missing them isn't a big deal is foolish. Is that the whole reason this has gone south? Absolutely not. And no one would say that. But it's a factor among many factors. And you can't act like, well, this is the team you got. You got to work. Well, no, but this team prepared all offseason to have these two guys who are phenomenally talented. And by the way, you talk about Race as a shooter. He is a corner three guy. He loves corner threes, and he did that a lot in high school. What he would do is post on the block, and they watched a lot of film on him. You post up on the block, somebody would drive down the middle, and instead of sealing his man, sometimes he would do that. Instead of sealing his man, he would step to the corner. His guy would help, boom, pass to the corner, wide open three. And he was really good at knocking those down. He's got a great shot. So, he's a guy who can help you in that way. And so you should expect help to be on the way next year with those two guys. And then, of course, you got to get Armand Franklin shooting threes. You've got to get maybe whoever the third recruit is in this class shooting threes, whoever you bring in as a transfer to shoot threes. I mean, it definitely has to be a focus moving forward, but just getting this team healthy will help with it.
So we're watching live, and Andy, it looks like he hasn't moved in like 45 seconds. I was like, what's up with Andy? He just texted me and said his computer shut down. He's getting back on.
So. Oh, I thought he was mesmerized by my talking.
I did too. So that explains that. Okay, so let's go on with number 6. And look, this is an important one. This is where we'll get into talking about Archie, Ryan, which is the offense isn't producing enough rhythm three-point looks for the guys who are here, who are there to take them. And, when you look at Archie's teams at Dayton, they usually shot well from three. The whole narrative about Archie not, valuing the three-point shot doesn't match his track record. But he always had a reliable point guard with an assist rate that was north of 25%. It's important for how his system runs. You look at Rob Finney, he was averaging 3.14 assists per game prior to the concussion when Indiana was a top 75 three-point percentage team. He's averaging 1.6 assists since the concussion. That's been a problem, as has the fact that Devontae and Al and Romeo haven't been consistent creators as defenses have packed in the lane. Plus you've had injuries that have hurt chemistry. Duran's been out. McRoberts hasn't even been, his usual self shooting the ball. Finally saw some confidence against Purdue. The lack of practice time together, and then given all of that, Archie and the staff haven't figured out other answers for how to get more rhythm looks. But all of those factors are contributing to guys who aren't elite shooters, and some of them being freshmen who are struggling, taking shots that aren't in rhythm, in a sea of losses where their confidence is dropping. And it's, like I said, it's kind of this vortex that is just creating some of this poor shooting that we've seen. Hasn't been happening all season, but certainly during the losing streak. And that's not to absolve the coaches because they need to get better at finding the answers. But when you have, mediocre shooters getting looks that aren't really in rhythm, what do you expect?
Yeah. That is a huge part of it is the offense has not looked good. The offense is also meant to have guys who spread the floor, spread the defense out. And if you're not doing that and you're not making those shots, it's a chicken and the egg thing. You're not getting good looks for your shooters, but at the same time, your shooters aren't hitting the shots when they do get good looks. I mean, it's cyclical and it works against itself the entire time. And so the offense is meant to have shooters on the floor that can spread the defense out, create driving lanes. It's a driving kick offense. It's actually similar to what Kentucky has run under John Calipari in its most basic form, which is a dribble drive, sort of create motion off of the drive and kick. From what I've seen, when they've gone to sort of a flex offense, it's actually worked because they've gotten more cutting and more movement off the ball, which I think they should probably do more of. But I think that it was also probably installed mid-season because they weren't doing a great job of getting into the offense that they needed to do. So again, yeah, you're getting mediocre shooters good looks and they're not making them, and that makes the offense more and more bogged down in the middle because the defense isn't respecting your ability to knock down shots. So it really, again, just a cyclical thing is that you're getting the open shots, but they're not going in. And then on top of that, the defense is basically giving you the open shots and you can't make them. So everything gets bogged down in the middle. Everything gets clogged. And, even people talk about how Tom Crean's offense was great. The 1 year he didn't have shooters, the exact same thing that happened this year happened that year. I can't remember what year it was.
2014.
It was 2014, where nobody could shoot. And what happened was everything got clogged up. The offense, it looked like guys were standing around. When you think back to Tom Crean's offense, that wasn't typically a problem, is guys standing around not being able to find room to drive. That was never the problem. But that season it was. And that's what happens when you can't shoot and can't spread the.
Yeah, and then, number 7, I basically said it, which is the missed shots and the losses have led to a loss of confidence that has compounded itself. And when you shoot, you have to be confident. And it's one of those things that can kind of be contagious. And everybody's, wants the next shot to count for 10 to make up for all the ones that you've been missing. And at some point, the guys are going to have to relax, and just start making shots. We'll see if that happens. This group may not be capable of it, but that has an impact too. Andy, you want to come in and just kind of chime in overall here?
Yeah, sorry, not exactly sure what happened there, but I think to go back to the point that was being made before I got booted. When you look back at a couple of those guys that you mentioned who didn't shoot it as well as freshmen, 2 guys did have good percentages on that list as freshmen, even though they got better. Those were James Blackman and Jordan Hulls. Those guys, again, if you go back, like they were brought in as shooters. That was a known commodity that they brought to the table, and they still did improve. And so I think even as you look at some of those guys that improved, you can kind of look at a guy like Al and say, hey, he's showing similar improvement. I think the Jerome and Race injuries are factors, but it's, on the one hand, I also don't want to say that, these other guys are struggling because they're freshmen, but, these 2 freshmen could have really helped. While they do have those skills, they may have encountered some of the same issues that Rob and Romeo have had. So it's a little bit of everything, but I think most of it is they're just not getting. And I think this is what you saw last year too. We talked about Rob Johnson. He shot it so well, his sophomore season, because he was getting in rhythm shots off of action from other guys.
Yep.
Very little of what this team has been able to do has been that way this season. And you see that in the assist totals. When IU shot the ball well, the assist total has been high. I understand that obviously you only get assists when you make a shot, but there is a correlation to the fact that when this team's moved the ball really well and gotten more rhythm shots, they've shown a better, albeit not great, ability to actually hit them.
All right, so let's carry this over to the next segment, because there are reasons for optimism moving forward, that the shooting will improve. So we're going to talk about that. We'll save what we had for segment 3 maybe for next week, or do it some other time. But stick with us. We're going to talk about reasons for optimism that this team will become better as a shooting team in the future. That's next. Good stuff. Yeah, good call on that, Ryan. Because that other stuff is probably going to take a little bit longer to explain anyway. So we're at 36:33. So, yeah, we can probably do about 10 minutes on this, I'm thinking. And good point, Andy, too, about bringing it in with, Jerome and Race are freshmen, so they might have struggled too. But even them struggling would still be an improvement over most likely what we've seen from other shooters.
Even to have other potential options would be worthwhile. So.
Yeah, just some other guys who could hit like 33, 34%.
Yeah, if they hit 30%, it's an improvement on what we're looking at right now.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And to hit 30% consistently, because, this is like 40%, then 10, then 15, then, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll jump into this. Yeah, okay. So I'll hit these, and then I'll go to you first on this, Andy, and then Ryan come in over the top. And let's do this. That song right there was called Bear's Mouth. Everybody saw that.
What?
Everybody saw what you just did
what?
There. That was on camera.
Do anything.
You need to say these things out loud so we can get the audio drop of it. I can't do
I was muted. I'm sorry.
I can't do video drops.
I was muted. I don't know what you're talking about.
Everybody watching saw it.
Huh. That's weird. I don't know what you guys saw.
Okay. So you think Leal's going to get an offer?
Yes.
So I could see it.
It's going to be, probably this offseason.
Yeah.
They're spending time on
I've heard differing accounts from people who are like close to him as a player about if he's right for this level.
I think
but he's also still young.
But he also, like, getting an offer doesn't mean that it's committable, like,
which is the weirdest thing.
I know, but it's true. But what they do is they give you an offer, and
so you can tweet it, and
and then, like, so you spend more time on campus and all that stuff. But
yeah,
I think they like him. He's local. They'll stick with it.
That'd be like, inviting Coach to be on the post-game show, but it's not committable. Like, we'll decide once the show starts if you can actually come. But here's the offer to be on here.
Yeah. Let's start the segment, Jerod.
Okay, fine. Let's do it. Here we go. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips. Remember that you need to be subscribed to our email newsletter. We send out a weekly IU News Roundup, even during the offseason, and after every game, we send out a detailed post-game analysis.
There's a high-level operation going on out there.
Just text IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. That's IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com.
Make no excuses.
No excuses. Okay, so guys, last segment, we talked about shooting, and we gave 7 reasons why this program has struggled so much to shoot, both last season and this season. And what we didn't get to, and we saved it for this segment, is some reasons for optimism moving forward. Because, look, I think we all agree, if we have to watch another season of shooting like this, it's going to make us question why we watch basketball in the first place. So, the first thing that I want to mention is, again, Archie Miller has a track record of teams being good from the three-point line. Just go look at his history at Dayton. A lot of his teams, took an above-average amount of threes, and they hit a high percentage of threes. When he's got the point guards and the shooters that he needs. And that's the first thing that I want to talk about here, which is recruiting. It is a priority. Indiana recruited Darius Garland and DJ Carton hard. Those are 2 point guards who can shoot. Obviously, we looked at Armand Franklin and Brandon Newman. Armand committed first, and he has drastically improved his shooting. He's shooting up over 40% this year as a senior, which is a great sign. We're targeting guys like Harlan Beverly, Quinones, this JUCO kid that I guess 80 people or 80 different teams are following at a JUCO in Dayton, who's a really good shooter. And we're involved with a guy like Anthony Leal from Bloomington South, who is a really good shooter but doesn't have an offer yet. So, Ryan, it's clear from a recruiting standpoint, this is a target. And just as you mentioned in segment 2 with Crean, the big thing is now you've got to land those shooters. But it's quite clear that Indiana is targeting them.
Yeah, and I think that there's an urgency because they've seen what's happened this year to focus more on shooters. I think that last year's class, you had Finney, you had Langford, and you had Hunter, who could all shoot, as perimeter guys. That hasn't worked out perfectly. Obviously, Hunter's out. Romeo hasn't shot particularly well, but let's face it, Romeo's also getting challenged by really good defenders on a nightly basis, and that's never been something he's had to deal with. And then Rob Finney, as you noted, was shooting 44.8% or something like that before his concussion.
Yeah.
He was becoming a reliable three-point shooter. So again, you have to look at this all in context. There isn't one reason why this has gone south, but it's a whole combination of factors. Now, Demezy Anderson, another guy who I thought was going to redshirt this year, I assumed was going to redshirt this year, but who could have, watching him as a high schooler could have helped you from a shooting perspective. Well, he hasn't developed the way he's supposed to yet. He needs quite frankly, I think he needs an offseason where they need to reshape his body, reshape his movement, reshape his leg strength, things like that. Everything that helps with shooting as well. Things like getting more spring on your jumper, because he really, if you watch him shoot, he doesn't move off the floor. We're talking millimeters off the floor when he takes a jumper. That's not good moving forward for him. So he needs to rework his jump shot in that way. He has the instincts for it. We've seen it in high school, but I do not think that he right now is a guy who's going to contribute on a college level right now. But yeah, no, I think there's a commitment to look for shooting. I think that Armand Franklin has really improved his shooting, just his shot. If you look at videos from him as a junior and this year, it's different. He's not a knockdown shooter yet, but the trajectory is there and he's worked on it and improved it. Rob Finney was not a shooter as a junior, as a sophomore and junior. He improved his senior year and his shot looked way better when he stepped on campus and stepped on court this year. So, you can develop and get better at it. but it's also key to get guys who just instinctively know how to knock down shots and are used to doing it. And I think that they're really trying to focus on that right now.
Yeah, and I think also, Andy, in terms of the returning players, and Ryan mentioned some of them, Al has already shown improvement. So not a guy who projected as a good shooter coming out of high school, but he has shown some improvement. That's good. Rob, again, projects as a solid shooter and facilitator, which we've talked about. It really impacts this. He can fill both of those roles. And then, look, we are all hoping that Jerome Hunter is healthy, able to play, because he's going to help that too. Maybe it takes him a little bit of time to adjust next year, but he certainly projects as that moving forward. And then we'll have to see, guys like Demezi and some of those others. But there is some reason for optimism with the returning players. Maybe none of them are a Jordan Hulls, but that all of those guys can at least start to become high 30s, low 40s, reliable type shooters.
Yeah, I think the challenges with some of this is you look at a guy like Al, and from everything you hear and you hear said about him, is just what a hard worker he is and how much time he's really spent into working on his jump shot. And when you go back to some of those other guys that you mentioned, you had those those freshmen listed. Hulls was known as a shooter. Certainly he worked at it, got better, continued to find ways to get his shot off and things like that. Blackman was known as a shooter, did get better as a shooter over the course of time. But you also had a guy in there like Oladipo who was not known for his shooting at all, but just was a guy that you always heard just worked his butt off to try to get better. And I think those, similar things about being in the gym are things that I feel like are said about Al. So I think it's got to be a mix, right? You've got to get some guys who come in just with that inherent ability to shoot, like a Hulls or a Blackman or guys like that. But it's okay to take on some guys who you think could project as good shooters who are going to get in and really work. I think what has been kind of left with this year is, freshmen and Al, who's really worked to get better at his shot. So I think if you can continue that kind of trajectory and get those kinds of kids in, a mix of those can be successful at that. And I think Franklin, quite honestly, seems like a guy who's already done some of that work, even as you guys said, from his junior to his senior year. So that's a positive sign for him, really, being diligent about working and trying to refine his game, get better at those kinds of fundamentals. So I do think there's reason for that. If guys can really take that challenge and work on those things and get better, I think that's good. I do think Finney has a good, foundation, but he was a guy that was not necessarily known as a great shooter coming out of high school, but was another one that seemed to kind of work on it over the course of his career as you read through different scouting reports there, and had definitely shown some ability to do that. So if he can make some of those jumps from a freshman to a sophomore as the other guys we mentioned, and Al continues to shoot the way he is, and you get some other guys in, I think it's positive. And quite honestly, you would expect nothing other than to see the staff really go after these kinds of recruits, because for all the reasons that everybody wants to, get mad and think about that this staff and this coach may not be right for the program, if you didn't hear they were out recruiting shooters, that would probably be the red flag for me. So they're clearly trying to rectify the situation. They understand, the magnitude of what that's causing and the spacing that's needed to be able to play and win in high level college basketball. So if there weren't shooters on the radar, at least if they were going after, you got to land them, like you said, but it's certainly an acknowledgement by them that improvements have to be made there. And I don't think anybody, coaching staff, fans, or players, want to sit through another season like the last couple have been, just in terms of being able to struggle to find consistent outside shooting.
Hey, you know what else they need to do? They need to hire someone to help these guys work on their shots. I am not pitching myself for that, but somebody needs to come in. They had one on the staff before. The last staff, I don't care if you hire them as a, support staff member who can come out during practice and help them, on their off time work on it. They do need somebody to help these guys tweak their shots. And every college team should have that. And so we haven't really heard that there's a guy on staff that does that. I like this staff in general, but they need some guy to be able, somebody who's a specialist, and make him like your film editor. I don't care whatever title you want to give him, your video director or whatever. Give him like a random title and let him come out and work with these guys in their off time on their shot, or even just like an assistant to Cliff Marshall or something like that, who can work with these guys in open gyms on their shot. They need that. They absolutely do. Even if it's with the good shooters, to make sure they're not, developing bad habits or whatever. So, because it's pretty obvious on video to see that the tweaks for these guys aren't that dramatic. They just need, to constantly be working on it and constantly be pushed. And there's a reason Al's gotten better. And you know why Al's gotten better? He's been stuck in the gym working on it. every report we've heard is about that guy's work ethic and how he has worked to make himself a better player.
And the other thing to think about when it projects to next year, look, Romeo and Juwan are tremendous players, and losing them is going to hurt in a lot of ways. But they are two of Indiana's three highest volume three-point shooters. Juwan shooting 31.9%. Romeo's at 26.7%, although he's been better in Big Ten play. You know, opponents are happy to let those guys shoot it. And once they aren't there, you're going to get more of the three-point attempts spread around to other guys who shoot a higher percentage. So, look, not having them is going to have cascading impacts elsewhere. I'm not here to say right now Indiana will be better without those two guys. But from a shooting perspective, you will have more natural three-point shooters taking more three-point shots, which should lead to, you know, more prolific three-point shooting, you know, outside of maybe a rematch with Butler or in the Crossroads Classic, because Juwan makes every shot there. But other than that, that will help the three-point percentage go up. Andy, any final thoughts on this before we move on?
What you were just talking about in general, I think it'll be interesting to see what the offense does, because we talk about, you know, we get on and talk about it. Well, it's, you know, four guys kind of standing around watching one of them, hoping they're going to make a play. So it's kind of sometimes good to have those guys that you feel like you can rely on, but sometimes it's also a crutch. But that also means that other guys are really going to have to step up, as you said, you know, to assume that from an offensive talent standpoint, this team is going to be better absent those two guys is probably foolish. But I think that maybe lack of predictability of defenses really being able to key in on those guys and really forcing other guys to have to be able to move and make plays within the flow of an offense as opposed to relying on individuals will be hopefully helpful and something that we may see, and it'll certainly be something that everybody will be looking for going into next season.
All right, so I know earlier that I teased that we talk about, you know, Indiana's talent, how it stacks up to other Big Ten teams. We'll save that for next week. We might talk about it on the YouTube version, so you can always go to youtube.com/assemblycall, check it out there. We may talk about it between segments, but we'll save that, maybe do it next week, or I'll put it out as a blog post, but we will definitely get to it in the future. All right, coming up in our final segment, we're going to answer your questions, including one about what Indiana needs to do to just make the NIT, another, if we have time, about what causes some of the offensive issues we've seen from IU, and others. That is next. Stick with us. All right, there we go. Nice job, gentlemen. 48-12. So we've got 348, so about 312.
All right, which ones of these did you want to hit?
Well, we'll hit the NIT one real quick. Let's see, we got 312.
Let me look. I haven't even looked at these.
So that one will be easy. I mean, we kind of talked. Is the poor offensive performance based on poor offensive scheme or a function of poor shooting skills? We kind of talked about that already.
Yeah, we did.
So we don't need to hit that. I don't know why Race didn't play against Purdue, so I don't really have anything to add there.
Yeah, let's just say we're not sure. We can answer that because I think some people have that, but just say we're not sure. The matchups may not have been right. I mean,
yeah, there was something floating around that Archie said that he forgot about Race, but I emailed JD to like ask because I didn't hear that anywhere, and he said he never heard Archie say that. So I don't know why that narrative was going around.
Hey, are you, Jerod? Are you getting a press pass for?
I have one. We also have tickets.
Okay,
so
well, I'm gonna request. I haven't requested yet, so I'm gonna request from JD tonight.
Okay,
I just totally forgot to.
Well, probably not going to be the most in-demand game given how the season has gone. So.
No, I mean, and he knows us, so I doubt that it'll be a problem. But
yeah. Yeah, so we'll figure that out. Let me see how many.
It's a noon tip on a Saturday. It's a terrible time to have a game, so nobody's going to want to come to cover it anyway. So lots of room for Ryan.
Hey, oh, by the way, so Megan reserved us a room at the Crazy Horse. So we've got like the back room at the Crazy Horse for after the game. So obviously we will be there. I'll send out an email to folks. Obviously everybody in the chat mob is invited. If you're going to be around, come hang out with us at the Crazy Horse after the game. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, send out a couple subscriber emails about it.
I will. And
to the list.
Yeah,
and then,
Friday night we're doing our dinner at Yonko's, and then we'll go somewhere on Friday night. I don't know where we're going to go.
Typically, it's the tap.
The tap or Nick's would be the
good get. Well, what time's dinner?
6.
We'll probably be able to get a spot at Nick's then.
Yeah.
By the time we're done, because people don't start lining up outside of Nick's till like 11. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and my buddy Gabe will be there that night, so he'll be hanging with us.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so we'll hit NIT. We'll hit which other question here should we hit? Some of these are.
We hit the race one, but just say we don't know. I mean, you can answer that one. Just say it real quick. Like we don't know. Could have been the.
Yeah, the one about the freshman class is a good one, and you've kind of hit it. So maybe
we can ask it again. We can clarify if we need another one.
Yeah. All right. We're not gonna have much time, so we'll just give kind of quick answers to these.
How much time do we have?
3 minutes.
Okay. Great. We've done well budgeting these well again.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Ask whatever. I mean, you can ask.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, you can get to the freshman question by really not even necessarily talking through like some of the individual parts, just like the questions themselves. I don't think need the context for the audience, given that we've already talked about some of those guys a little bit. So that'll save a little bit of time if you skip to that part.
I wanted to get, so I asked the NIT bracketology guy. I just wanted to be able to have his answer there. It's an obvious one, but yeah, okay. There we go. And then Andy, you can chime in with anything after that.
Yeah,
you just go as you feel, Jerod.
Okay. I'll take my shots in rhythm. All right, here we go. You're listening to the Assembly Call. We are wrapping up another week of talking IU basketball. I'm Jerod Morse here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, and we've got a few questions to get to. These questions submitted in our private IU basketball discussion community, which you can learn more about at assemblycall.com/community. So we got a few questions about what Indiana needs to do to make the NIT. I sent a tweet to John Templin at NY Buckets, who is like the only guy that I know who does NIT bracketology. He said Indiana basically needs to go 3-2 down the stretch, considering their current record, to get above 500, and they can't afford to lose at home against Rutgers. If they do that, I think we all agree. If Indiana is above 500, they're going to make the NIT.
Yeah, I don't care who they beat. They're going to be. Yeah. I mean, if they're, because you have to be above 500 to get the invite, right? That's
actually you don't have to anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, technically, but they typically only take teams that are over 500. They changed the rule.
Yeah,
but
yeah, if they're above 500, they're getting in.
Yeah, the big swing thing with the NIT, the way they changed a couple years ago, and I think I brought this up last year because sadly we've had NIT discussions 2 years in a row. But for teams in non-major conferences that won their regular season but don't win the conference tournament, they basically get an automatic bid to the NIT. So, you know, you've got a set field that the number of quote unquote at-large bids is based upon how these teams do in their conference tournaments. So. As unfun as it might be to root for the favorites, sometimes that might be what IU fans will need to do.
And yes, if Indiana got an NIT home game, they would take it.
They would take it.
There would be no more ridiculous
nonsense. You get a
nonsense.
couple more weeks to practice with your full roster. You're taking it.
Jeffrey asked, why didn't Race play after his good play versus the Gophers? I don't know. It might have been just the matchups. I haven't heard. You know, I didn't hear Archie address it, so I haven't heard any reason beyond that. Hopefully he'll get a chance to get in there against Iowa. And then let's end with this, Ryan. You know, this is from Max talking about the freshman class. It has obviously had some ups and downs. It's had some injuries. Are you still buying this class as a foundational class for Archie Miller that can do what he needed it to do?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not to. Rob Finnessy and Romeo Langford were fantastic when they, before Rob's injury, and then Hunter and Jerome Hunter and Race Thompson were the number 2 and 3 recruits in that group, and they've both been injured all year, so you don't really know what you're getting from them. Based on what I've seen of them, I have no doubt that they'll be good basketball players. Jake Forrester was always a long-term project. I think he'll be fine as an energy guy and potentially a guy who, if he develops the right way, could start as a senior or later on in his career. And then Demezi Anderson, I said, was a guy who needed a red shirt and needed to develop. So they've been pretty much what I've expected. The guys on the floor who I've seen on the floor have been exactly what I expected. The problems have been Race Thompson and Jerome Hunter have been injured, and they were the second and third ranked recruits in this class who were supposed to be a big part of the team. So yeah, this is pretty much what I expected from the other guys. And Rob Finnessy, even before his injury, Rob Finnessy was better than I expected. So this class isn't a problem, I don't think.
All righty, well, that's going to have to do it for us on this week's episode of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live, join us.
Chat mobbers.
At assemblycall.com on Thursday nights for the live broadcast of our Assembly Call recording. And you can always subscribe to our podcast by searching for Assembly Call wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again for the IU Iowa postgame show Friday night after the Iowa game. Till then, Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
And cut. Okay.
Alrighty.
So, by the way,
go ahead.
I just want to mention real quick since we teased it for the folks who are here, like from a talent perspective, and you don't need to like know the entire methodology that I use as long as you trust my ability to analyze this from a numbers perspective. Basically, looking at each team's talent level based on their recruiting rankings, and then kind of how the minutes have been distributed on their team, and then the experience level of those players, kind of giving a bump for the experience. Indiana basically came in right in terms of talent. They came in 5th. In terms of talent and experience, they came in 6th. So it's one of those things, maybe not quite as high as the preseason projections would have suggested in terms of, being good enough and experienced enough to compete for a Big Ten title, but a hell of a lot better than playing in a Wednesday Big Ten game. What was really interesting is the teams that really seemed to outperform their recruiting rankings and experience levels were Purdue, Iowa, and Wisconsin. All 3 of those teams are 60th or better in the country in three-point shooting and 75th or better in turnover percentage, which has seemed to kind of help them be able to compensate for maybe not having, the highest quote-unquote talent or experience. And Nebraska, Indiana, Northwestern, and Minnesota have all underperformed their level more than anybody else, and they're all 224th or worse in three-point shooting. It would appear that three-point shooting is important in modern college basketball.
No way.
Just
big if true.
And not always something that is indicative in recruiting rankings. That's one of the things. I mean, sometimes you have to go for a lower ranked guy who's a better shooter to get that shooting in your program.
I think our listeners want to know that the San Diego Padres ownership tomorrow is meeting in the morning.
Damn, that's
to decide. They can also to sign Bryce Harper. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
They only caught like half. Wait, what? Wait, what did you say?
They're meeting tomorrow to decide whether or not they can also sign Bryce Harper.
Oh, jeez. I was trying to tune that out, and then I heard
trying to steal from the Phillies, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, man.
The thing is, their payroll was so low that they could add both and still be at league average.
God.
That's insanity.
That is insanity.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, the San Antonio Commanders are in town this week. If you want to go see an AAF game, if you want to talk to Bob Morris and do a story for the big lead on the AAF, let me know. I'll hook you guys up.
They're in SD this weekend?
Yeah, they're coming in. He gets in Saturday.
Yeah, last weekend's game, I felt bad for the players because it was like, it never rains here, and it was just torrential downpour during the game. So, like, nobody showed up. But
yeah. Okay, so you're in tomorrow night, right, Ryan?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Andy's out, so I need to ask Coach. He'll probably have a game. It's Friday night.
Maybe. Yeah,
He'll probably have-
9:15 tip, I think. Are those
their sectional is Saturday. He said if they win their sectional, he's coming next Saturday. So he's not going to be able to be at the game, but he said if they win, he's going to drive down and buy beers for everybody on Saturday night.
Nice. So wait, their sectional is next Saturday?
Next Saturday is when their sectional is supposed to be. That's what he said yesterday or last week.
Yeah, the draw was this week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well, they're still playing, but I was gonna say if he had a player who was a good shooter, we could go to the Hyper and do a shooting demonstration. I would totally fully do that video if you guys wanted to one year, maybe next year.
That would be cool. No, we should totally do it.
Yeah. Just get me some shorts and
let's ask JD if we can get a current Hoosier.
I'd like you to just walk over to the Hyper and just walk. If we could just video you walking up to random people asking if you can do it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a shot doctor.
Yeah.
Can I?
By the way, you have to go back.
Sir, it looks like you might need a little bit of help. And then
you have to go back and find it, Jerod.
Do you think you are?
You have to go back and find it. You dubbed me the shot doctor. You said our resident shot doctor, Ryan Phillips. I never called myself that, and I still haven't ever called myself that. You did. You absolutely did. You were being sarcastic, I think, joking around, but you did call me that. 100%.
This is another one of those cases.
Mine through episode number 200 to try and find.
Well, there you go. Then
this is one of those cases where the first part of what you said could be believable, but then you followed it up with the part where, but I've never called myself that.
No, I've never sat there and been like,
at which point it all went to hell. So,
Yeah. We need to do another one of those Twitter polls, see who people believe. Did Ryan dub himself the shot doctor, or did Jerod? I mean, I might have said it mockingly or sarcastically.
Yeah,
that might be true.
Yeah.
And then that's how it caught
But
on.
you've embraced it to a pretty large extent. I mean, to not take any responsibility for.
I definitely thought it before Jerod said it. Like there's no joke there. So by the way, our talk with the Alumni Association guy is at 11 in the morning on Saturday.
It is 11 Eastern, 10 my time. So.
Thanks.
Hey, it's the only time that we could do it.
I'm kidding.
Only time that we could do it. And then so by the way, if you're still here listening, we are
why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, the Alumni magazine reached out to us. They're going to do a profile on the show. I don't know if they're doing an article or like an entire episode about IU podcasts or like, podcast by IU folks. So we're going to talk with them, and then they want to do some kind of photo shoot while we're in town. So I invited them, to like dinner to the Crazy Horse thing, because I'd love if they got, audience members and, kind of made it a big thing. But we'll see what they.
Is the guy who's doing it in Bloomington?
The guy who's writing it is not in Bloomington, but the photographer and the publisher is in Bloomington.
Yeah.
So
bring him in.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see. I don't know what time we'll have to go do that, but yeah, we'll get Ryan in a little lab coat, the shot doctor.
Get like a crazy wig, make it look like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. All right.
Ryan and his head.
What'd she say? Say that again.
Ryan and his head.
Right.
It's the moneymaker, baby. All right. Got to get out of here, folks.
Yeah, you go enjoy dinner. What was made for dinner?
I don't know yet. I can smell, but I don't know what.
She didn't just pour you a bowl of cereal and.
Nope, no cereal.
What flavor of Hot Pockets are you having?
She's actually cooking. I don't know. All right. Bye.
All right. He's got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
All right.
So do I. All right. I'll see you tomorrow night, Ryan.
All right. He already left. All right.
Yeah, he did. Have fun at the Eric Church concert, Andy.
Yeah, should be good. I mean, who knows? It may be over by the time the game is ending, since it's. I didn't realize. I thought it was 9, but it's 9:15 apparently.
Oh God.
Because 9's not late enough.
I know, and
although maybe they built in the obligatory, like there's no way we've ever started a game on time, so we might as well just build in the additional 10 to 15 minutes that we're going to give anyway.
Yeah, and neither Ben nor Seth can write the post-game email. So if you get home from the Eric Church concert and you're feeling frisky and you want to analyze the game,
analyze the game that I didn't watch.
Yeah, I mean,
what if I
probably write it without
wrote it ahead of time, and then you just fixed up the parts that turned out a little bit differently than we thought.
That would actually be hilarious.
That would be.
I mean, if you had like an hour of your life to literally waste, because that's what that would be. It would be entertaining.
I wish that I could say that I had that, but I'm not sure that I do right now. But anyway, so and then do you still need me to host next Tuesday? Another 9:00 tip.
Is that a late one too? I mean, since it's so late, I can probably be there, but at least plan on it, because Heather's gonna be. She's definitely gonna be home late that night. So
okay.
Yeah,
so I think it's a 9:00 one as well. So
okay, yeah, just plan on it.
I can certainly be available to do it, and then we'll have radio show. At least you and I Thursday, but I don't know if Ryan will be able to do it, depending upon where he is.
Yeah, he can do it from Indy or wherever he's at. Yeah, Thursday, and then Friday we'll be in town.
Yeah,
and I got Will is going to host the show on Saturday, and Chad will be there.
Okay,
so Will's going to be talking IU basketball for the first time in like 3 years.
Sweet. Hey, whatever.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So,
but what I'm hoping is we can like pop on after we leave the stadium. Maybe by the time segment 1 or segment 2 is done, we can pop on with our phones on Zoom and have some fun with it.
Sounds
all right,
good.
man. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We will see you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, I guess.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool.
See you. Thanks, everybody.